Okay, we want to begin. We have three additional distinguished faculty speakers, and then we're going to bring in two of our students, which is a graduate student, and then an undergrad later this afternoon. So our first speaker in the afternoon is Rocío Calvo. She is an associate professor in the School of Social Work, and I'm told she's going to move around and not stand behind the podium because she needs to keep warm.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Tom. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very thrilled to be here today. I'm going to move because I'm cold and because I don't know how to speak and engaging without moving around. This is the quest of my scientific life. How social protection, how social policy contributes to the incorporation of immigrants. Let's talk about several things that are there. Social protection. Social protection is understood differently in different contexts. Sometimes in the United States, social protection, when we think about social protection, we think about welfare. But welfare is too restrictive. When I talk about social protection, what I mean is those opportunities and means of social advancement. Link that to the common good. When I think about the common good as a social worker, I think about what is my responsibility to provide access to the same opportunities of social advancement, health, and education to everyone. What is my job as a researcher, as a scholar, as a teacher, to train social workers to work with communities that are systematically oppressed to remove those barriers. That's what I do. So when social workers come and say, I want to help, and I say, that's excellent. But people not only want your help, people want the same access to opportunities that you have had. Because out there are people as smart as you are, that work as hard as you do, but did not have the same opportunities as you had. That, to me, that's how I understand the common good. How my work as a scholar, as a teacher, contributes to everyone to have the same access to opportunities for their own advancement and fulfillment. This is social protection. And what is incorporation is that, as an immigrant, how do I reach my full potential in receiving countries? So today, I'm going to talk about something that is not controversial at all, which is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Obamacare was the perfect scenario, policy-wise, to look at this question. I've been looking at this question for many years. I've used everything: secondary data, statistical analysis, modeling. I work with everyone. I'm an interdisciplinary researcher. I work with economists, with sociologists, with anthropologists, political scientists, but this was the perfect opportunity. Why? Because although Obamacare was enacted to be at the federal level in 2010, later regulations gave each state quite of room to decide how they were going to implement access to healthcare. So I went to two of the most extreme examples. Massachusetts. Massachusetts had, since 2006, Massachusetts had already passed in 2006 a comprehensive health reform, Romney Care, right? And then Florida, on the other hand, not only, after Obamacare passed, not only did not expand Medicaid, which is the access to healthcare for those that are in the lowest levels of income, but also did not provide the same amount of subsidies for those that were not able to access healthcare, to buy healthcare. So you had almost two states that were at the opposite end of the spectrum on the provision of care that they were given immigrants. And you might say, what immigrants are you talking about? Good question. I'm talking about Latinos. That's the population I work with, but not any Latino. Most research on Obamacare and access to healthcare of Latinos has been conducted with undocumented immigrants, which is fine because they were excluded from the Affordable Care Act. But for my question, how social protection contributes to the incorporation of immigrants, that segment of the population was limited because I always got the argument, well, you really cannot argue anything if you are talking about people that are systematically excluded. Your argument is not complete, and I said, you know what, I got the point. So for this, I only look at either naturalized Latino immigrants or those that were here authorized and that had been here for more than 10 years. Why the 10 years? Because the welfare reform of '96 prevent immigrants to access any benefit if they have been here for less than 5 years. So I set up my study in a way that I was not going to be kind of distracted, scientifically speaking, from legal status or time in the United States. In other words, everybody that I interview, and I interview a lot of people, 250 immigrants in depth, had, quote unquote, legal access to healthcare in the United States. Everybody. And I compare Boston, and I work in Boston, and I work in Miami. Because the state, the legislation was absolutely the opposite. The first thing that I found was that most Latinos in Boston were covered by health insurance, Mass Health, where in Florida, most Latinos were not covered. And then the other thing that I found was that this lack of coverage led to avoidance of health care, constant. People were not getting not only preventive health care, but they only were getting health care when there was not other option. Oftentimes, conditions were acute and therefore much more expensive if you want to look at on healthcare costs. We had people that, because they have not been getting the preventive care that they needed, and they only went to get access to healthcare when there was not more options, had complex conditions that required surgeries and that required long-term care that was extremely expensive. Debt. This is in Miami. People could not pay. People could not provide for basic necessities, let alone to pay for their health care. So you may say, well, this is the mechanism. This is what happened in one place versus the other. But then, what is the mechanism? How these experiences of not having access to healthcare, of having to go to the hospital when I have no other option, contributes to my sense of belonging. How do I feel that I belong to America? This is Miami. This is just one of the quotes. But basically, the mechanism that we found is that different legislations, not that Boston is perfect because it's not, but it's much more encompassing than Florida. That the legislation that is more universal creates a sense of deservingness. This is Boston. So if you want to go back to the issue of the common good, a legislation, a context that is more universal, signal immigrants' place in society. We are talking about people that have been on the United States an average of 15 years, many longer than that came here to work, that had jobs that do not provide health coverage. Many have 2 or 3 jobs. They came here, like I came here, for better opportunities and for give your children better opportunities. The difference is that because access to healthcare is not universal in the United States, these immigrants, even though they work in jobs that where many of them are very physically very demanding, access to healthcare was not part of their benefits. When they went to deal with the state to get this healthcare in Miami, they were treated by bureaucrats, social workers included, as non-deserving. The interaction with the system of social protection is signaling immigrants, you don't deserve this. You come here, you work, but you don't deserve to get healthcare. In this case, social workers are trained as bureaucrats that must prevent access to services, are gatekeepers. Their job is not to help anybody. Their job is not to lower the barriers for access to opportunities. Their job is to protect. Their job is to prevent individuals that they perceive as undeserving from those goods that they are not supposed to get. That tells the immigrants where they belong in society. They belong in the periphery. Actually, one of the things that we found in Miami is that immigrants have created a parallel system of support, a parallel system of access to healthcare that was not only insufficient, but that was that did not cover basic needs. Why this is important? This is important for 2 main reasons. The main reason is that by the year 2050, 30% of the United States is going to be of Latino descent. More than 1 out of 4 people on this country. So is the largest growing minority, for lack of a better word, in the United States. 78% of those Latinos are either native-born or naturalized citizens. No matter what we hear in media, most Latinos are authorized to be in the United States. More importantly, 50% of the children of Latino children are growing up in these immigrant families. If we talk about these immigrant children, 98% are either native-born or naturalized citizens. So we are truly looking at the future of the United States demographically. Yet, policy-wise, we are telling them that they do not belong. And we are signaling that through our policies and how we treat them in the system of social protection. Think about something. I don't know if you have ever lived in another country or if you have kids. But the first thing you do if you have kids and you live in another country is what you look for a school and for a pediatrician. Think of those immigrants that are here, are completely authorized to live in here, doing the jobs that do not cover for this healthcare. What are we telling them? What are we telling those kids that are growing up in those immigrant families? Imagine how is the common good? And when I think of the common good, I think about the common good of all of us. If we are letting that huge segment of the population, you don't belong here, through the access to social services. That's how immigrants interact. This is one of the ways that immigrants interact with receiving societies, through the institution of social protection. Almost all immigrants interact with that. So this is the research for the common good. Now let's talk about the practice. Greg said, so the research is very good, but what do we do to train the students? That's the second piece. And he's not here, I believe, anymore, but you can tell him. So this research led, in the School of Social Work, where I belong, to the creation of the Latino Leadership Initiative. Another thing that I have found in my research is that this varies across ethnic and language concordance. Those immigrants that have social workers that are concordant with in terms of ethno-racial background and language have a better sense of belonging. Yet, less than 5% of social workers in the United States are Latinos, less than 5%. So what we have done in the School of Social Work, because we have seen this and the need, is created the Latino Leadership Initiative, where we use the resources that we have to recruit and retain and train social workers to be effective providers of care to Latino communities. We focus on the procedural justice. So the takeaway message is not only important what you get, but how you are treated in the process. Immigrants don't only care or don't only get the signal from the state of you are deserving because you get healthcare or not healthcare. When you are in universal systems, you are treated as belonging, you deserve that. And now in the School of Social Work, we train social workers and Latinos to provide healthcare services and social work services that are aligned with this research in which procedural justice is at the forefront of our training. We keep doing this research. This is a work in progress. Now we have moved on looking at older adults, Latinos 65 and over, how they access services and how they are treated is the fastest growing population of the older adults. And also we keep growing with the LLI. Now 10% of our MSW are students that are in the LLI. And we have 5 doctoral students. And last year, only 13 graduated in the whole country that are Latinos from social work. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you very much.
I'll start again with the thank you and to say I'm here to talk about 2 intersecting forces that together will reshape aging in the 21st century. The first force is longevity, the extension of our lifespans to an average of into the 80s and beyond. The second, which is my area of research, is the profusion of devices that are animated by artificial intelligence, ranging from sensors to smartphones to robots that are designed to interact with consumers, with humans. I believe that we are at an inflection point with the deployment of AI-enabled devices, in particular robots in the form of care bots that are specifically designed to support those of us who are over 65 and older and who are rapidly aging. And decisions that are made today about the balance of human and artificial intelligence in these devices are going to determine what it is like in the future to age in a digital society. Why is artificial intelligence so important in this process of aging in the future? Because the combination of dramatic increases in longevity and declining birth rates around the world are already leading to a shortage of human caregivers to support aging populations. And that shortfall today is going to become a global crisis in the next 2 decades. In Japan today, 26% of the population is already over 65, and that percentage will go up to over 40% by 2060. The other two lines are China and the US. So today the percentages are not so high as in Japan, but the actual numbers of population over 65 are already higher. In China, 142 million people are over 65 today. That's 4 times higher than the number in Japan and 3 times higher than the number in the US. So it's not surprising that China, like Japan, has made a deliberate policy decision to invest in artificial intelligence and in care bots to substitute for human caregivers to support their aging populations. From both a technology and a business perspective, this makes perfect sense. While there's a shortage of youngsters, the Internet of Things is booming with billions of smart connected devices around the world. The cost of technology is rapidly decreasing. The smarts in AI, the ability of artificial intelligence to mimic, replicate human behavior, anticipate needs, is increasing all the time. So this is an inexorable development, and it's already happening in China and in Japan. So as we think about what issues this raises, this is in fact from a nursing home for seniors in China. Some critical questions come up. In the interaction of an AI-enabled device with a human, what gets priority? What values obtain? Will it be human values or will it be robotic efficiency? How will it feel to the individuals who are being cared for by care bots instead of by other humans? What will that experience feel like? And who will be in control? As we start to contemplate these questions, a good leading indicator is to look at what is the experience today of seniors in using digital technology. So this is a survey from the Pew Foundation focused on the US seniors, 65 up to 80 plus, and there's some good news here. So seniors, it turns out, are rapidly adopting internet connectivity and smartphones. And not only that, seniors love their smartphones. In fact, they are very frequent users of digital devices, even more so than younger baby boomers. So that seems like a good indicator. However, when Pew asked these seniors how confident they felt in using their smartphones and other digital devices, the pattern gets more negative in what I call an adoption confidence paradox. So this is now a chart of younger users, 18 to 29 at the top, and 65 and over at the bottom. And only 26% of those seniors, even though they are regular users of digital devices and the internet, reported that they felt confident that they could actually accomplish what they wanted to do with their devices. So if we believe that this confidence is a problem, we want to think about that. But maybe it doesn't seem like a problem. Maybe it just seems like that's how it is. After all, there's a widespread social meme that younger generations embrace technology naturally and eagerly, and that retirees are kind of befuddled users who need to ask their grandchildren or the nearest teenager how to figure out these newfangled digital devices. However, I don't believe that that's a reflection of the natural order of things. What if it's more of a social construct? Partly because of pervasive ageism in our society, and also because of patterns of venture investment, corporate strategy, and, in fact, product design decisions over the past 20 years. If that's the fact, good news, because we can perhaps do something about it. If it's not the natural order of things, but it's a social construct, we can change some things. And in fact, there's a contrasting model that I'd like to present to you, where there has been a very successful attempt to target a demographic with very low skills in using digital technology and sometimes not even very much interest or confidence, but to successfully build the confidence of this demographic over the long term. So I'm an enthusiastic supporter of Code.org and their mission to teach kids to code. My point here is that as a society, and in particular in the business world, deliberate decisions are made to spend billions of dollars on teaching toddlers how to code. Now, as a new grandmother, I confess that I am probably going to buy robotic toys and books about coding for my granddaughter way in advance of her actual interest in learning to code. However, I just took a quick look at Amazon to see how pervasive this trend was, and just in search of teaching kids to code, I came up with 287 books. Then I searched learning to code over 65, seniors learning to code, retirees learning to code, all of the terms I could think of. There were 0 books. So there is a deliberate pattern here of investment as well as social support. Code.org is a nonprofit, raises quite a lot of money in this mission to teach kids to code. And again, that is a great thing. I'm not at all critical of what they're doing. I'm saying, think about this. How many 5-year-olds really, really, really want to learn to code? Arguably, the over 65s have a much more urgent need to learn those digital skills. But we're investing in teaching the kids to code, and we're just not investing in teaching seniors to code. And in fact, Code.org is quite candid about the fact that their Hour of Code, which is usually a successful worldwide campaign, and even more intensive boot camps and programs for K through 12 to learn to code, are more about confidence than about creating polished application developers. So if you take this quote from a program manager at Code.org and you substitute seniors for students, and that dark is believe. So it's not about what seniors can actually do after they maybe take a course or read a book about coding. It's what they believe they can do. It's about agency. It's about a feeling of empowerment that Code.org does very successfully inculcate, I use a word that we used in the panel, into kids. So they feel confident. They're eager to engage with those resources. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, aren't we already spending billions of dollars today on healthy aging, on helping seniors just age in place? The money's out there, we just aren't teaching them to code. Why is that a priority? Well, this is an example of why even the best intentions in terms of creating empathy in product designers can backfire. So at the very well-regarded, and I respect very much, the MIT Age Lab, they developed this idea of creating an aging empathy suit for their students and developers who work with the Age Lab. So this aging empathy suit, you put on the goggles, it makes your vision blurry. You get all tethered up, so you can't bend over, you can't reach. It's very fatiguing, and it makes you feel disabled. Well, unsurprisingly, those who put on this suit for a while, they're really aware of the physical challenges of aging. Equally unsurprisingly, they often focus on frailty and disability in the products that they designed for seniors, because this is their idea of aging. And to be fair, it's not just at MIT. So this team won a competition at the University of San Diego, a competition in healthy aging and innovation in healthy aging by designing a high-tech walker with sensors that detected and warned seniors about uneven terrain. Again, it's not that that's a bad thing to have. Of course it's not a bad thing to have. It's useful, but it's not empowering. It's not about really reinventing aging, nor is it about really giving seniors a sense that they have control and agency in their environment. So I would contend that in product design and in using technology to empower seniors, unfortunately, we haven't really come very far from the infamous, I've fallen and I can't get up, which is still an existent product. And yes, that might be funny if the implications for aging in digital society were not actually so negative. So if we persist in focusing on disability and on frailty, and we do not invest in any way in building confidence in control of digital technology, then we risk creating in seniors as they age a sense that the robots are in fact in control and that they have no ability to change that. And this is a nursing home in Japan. And I'm sure it's a great place, but I don't want to go there. And I don't think we necessarily want to accept this as our vision of digital aging. So, is there any alternative? Yes. So, in my field, in innovation, design thinking, and technology adoption and diffusion, there actually are well-known, well-researched, well-established best practices that involve when you define the user, you focus on strengths and capabilities as well as needs. When you design a product, you embed operational transparency and flexibility as well as standardized features. You give the user, in other words, agency and choice in how they interact with a digital device. In China and Japan, from everything that I've researched and read, they're already tipping over in the other direction, which is less control, more standardization, more emphasis on economic and business value instead of personal and human value. So, what's at stake? I feel there's a lot at stake. Social value. We're facing a choice of empowering and connecting with and allowing our oldest citizens to be effective, engaged, and contribute to society as they grow older, or not. We're squandering that opportunity. We're hindering them from doing that. Moral, ethical value, our commitment, I believe, that every human being should age with dignity, should be valued, should stay connected, and should be enabled and empowered to give back to society in so many different ways as they age. There are so many things that artificial intelligence and robotics could do to promote that empowerment and engagement and giving back to society if the design was built in to prioritize that human value and agency. So to wrap up, in my own research, I'm working on two hypotheses that are related. One is that design thinking programs would have a positive impact on the desire of over 65 users to try out, test, and adopt available AI-based devices and services. And I think this could build into a policy which required co-design, co-testing of future AI-enabled devices by their end users, the customers, and that would have a very positive impact. And the second is that the impact of learning to code would positively change the level of confidence of over 65 users. Again, not trying to turn seniors into application developers, but giving them a sense of empowerment because they understand how it works and they understand how some of the decisions in the design are made deliberately. So some of the ideas here, I hope, will indeed contribute to the work of interdisciplinary research in aging in a digital society with dignity and with an emphasis on human value and human intelligence in the future. Thank you.
We have time for a couple quick questions. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. Given the planned number of people in the world who will be 65 and older, what's the likelihood that business will recognize that as an untapped market, a growing market, and that they will do this more naturally than has been done thus far?
That's a great question, and that's why I mentioned that it's already a $70 billion industry aging in place. And so I think business recognizes it as an opportunity to sell devices that support seniors, home monitoring 24/7, reporting on anything that goes wrong with seniors living alone. To me, that is not the same as empowering seniors to take control. So business is already all over this opportunity. But what they're not seeing is the long-term common good right now of empowering our oldest citizens or empowering all of us as we age to continue to contribute to society. That I don't see emerging as a business opportunity, and I hope I can encourage that trend. Yes?
Mary, I actually wonder, not a rhetorical wonder, I actually wonder if there's a dimension here of third-party payer, where, for example, purchasing of AI and other digital devices for seniors over, 69, 70, may be happening by the younger generation. People who are responsible for assisting in the care of their aging at home, older adults, et cetera, and how that affects, there's more mentality that needs to be changed because of the payer dynamic.
I have one anecdote to answer that wonder, which thank you, I love that question. I have worked with some groups on longevity aging, and a younger woman, after some discussion in the group, said, "Oh my God, I have spent all my conversations with my 79-year-old father on safety. Not what makes his life worth living, or what he wants to do, but on how he can stay safe. And she had said, I've, gotten these sensors, and, I'm so obsessed with safety. And she was able to step back, actually. I think that is characteristic of children, of aging parents. They hear so many disaster stories that the fall, the broken bones, the decline, that they get really focused on that. And in some sense, help to impose these AI-driven solutions rather than trying to create a better balance of what that individual actually wants in their life.
Thank you for this presentation. Have you considered in this preliminary research older adults from different ethno-racial backgrounds? The projection of the United States projects that the numbers of non-Hispanic white are going to decline substantially in the next 2 decades, right? Where the number of Latinos and others are going to increase. How does this apply to populations that may have not the purchasing power, or they might have? I think this can be very useful, but how have you considered that?
I would love to. I would need an interdisciplinary partner to take that on. But that is a great area for exploration.
Yeah, particularly for isolation of low-income Latinos and others that,
So I have talked to companies and providers of facilities for the aging in Japan. So I've looked more at the highly developed countries, but I would love to get more involved in that broader population.
It's a good thing to be a Catholic priest because I'm used to talk to the people on the back seat, like it looks like a mass, so it's okay. This quotation is for a review that I got rejecting a paper that I submit this semester. A paper rejection is not something that is strange to our career, but I was particularly struck by the things that this reviewer, that I don't know why I assume is a male, but the things that this guy say about poor people. And I was reading this review when I got this invitation, so I said, okay, it's a good way to start and to finish. It was a journalist called Sociology of Religion, top journal in the field, and this is the view of an academic, of a colleague of us, about poor people, okay? So I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to come back to these reviews. The topic is religion from the ground, the study of lived religion in Latin America. Economic development, democratic government, a growing middle class have changed the spiritual realm of Latin America that used to be a Catholic continent, now is much more diverse. As there are Catholics still is the big majority. However, we have a growing number of Pentecostals, about 10%, 15% in the continent, and then another 10% of non-believers, of non-affiliated people. Since 2000, there are many analyses that tend to be more historical or focus on the religious orientation or dealing with the political influence of this social change. But in all cases, the discussion are focused on the institutions. For that reason, the research that I conduct started with a different point of view, the perspective of the ordinary people, acknowledging the agency of ordinary believers in the religious realm. We use a fresh methodological approach called lived religion to study religion as practiced by ordinary individuals beyond the borders of the religious institution, without neglecting the influence of the religious institution, but looking at how do people practice religion. The focus is more on the religiousness, on the religiosity of the people, than on Latin American religions. We try to understand Latin American experience of transcendence by looking at the practices that exist at the level of everyday believers and non-believers, and the way they experience spirituality in ordinary life. We explore what tensions emerge in Latin American spiritual landscape from the way that people understand the relation of religiosity with everyday life and the impact that the religion has on urban Latin American societies and vice versa. We wanted to hear the voices of the people, of real people, voices found beyond the borders of religious institutions, because religious organizations do not provide a full picture of the spiritual landscape today. If you think about traditional ways of measuring religion, it's affiliation and participation in the Dominical service. So if we have a person, a woman, who prepares the whole year to pilgrimage to the Virgin of Guadalupe, doing meetings, reading, without attending church, that woman falls from the category of a believer. So we say, okay, how can it be possible that sociology of religion don't pay attention to that way of believing, which is central to the way of believing, of practicing religion in Latin America? Ordinary Latin Americans became the experts in our research. What mattered for them was the object of our research. We recognize that personal religion is untidy, is multifaceted, a mixture of belief expressed in everyday practices in which people engage their bodies and emotions. Often, those practices are adapted, modified from the institutional practice, and blended by the individual. As researchers, we try to make visible the parts of religion that scientific categories have made invisible, and recognize that in their daily life, people may consider practice to be more important than belief, or make no distinctions about where to practice religion, either in private or public spaces. We employ qualitative techniques, in-depth interviews, and object elicitations. The picture that you are looking at, the picture that people provide us, that we ask them to bring come back with pictures from significant objects. We interviewed 240 individuals in 3 cities in Latin America: Lima in Peru, Córdoba in Argentina, Montevideo in Uruguay. It involved 3 Jesuit universities: Boston College, Universidad Católica de Córdoba, Universidad Católica de Montevideo, and the Pontifical University of Lima. We picked people from upper and lower classes, upper and middle classes and lower classes, Catholics, evangelicals, other religious beliefs, and non-religious beliefs. And our research investigated 2 main questions that I'm going to focus on the draft of the results. If you want to talk about more the design of the research, no problem at all. But we wanted to know, what do Latin Americans do when they do religion? And why it's important for us, many of you are not Latin Americans, why studying Latin American religion is important for the rest. What do Latin Americans do when they do religion? A lot of things. From the expected prayers to watering plants, hiking the mountains, psychological therapy, running on the beach, streaming a liturgy, praying with their phones, volunteering in secular organizations, tattooing their bodies, reading, lighting candles, preparing dinners. They do religious things everywhere, from the bathroom to the living room, during the commute and at the workplace. The classical distinctions between private religious places and secular public spaces is blurred among our respondents. Same situation with the idea of the sacred time. People do religion at any moment when they feel they need to do it. Latin American respondents are in touch with a religious other, mostly within the family. Most of the interviewees have frequent contact with persons that identify with a different religious tradition, an important change when compared with 50 years ago. However, even when that encounter triggers some interest in the other, they try to visit places, participate in celebrations outside their own affiliation, it didn't mean dialogue. Most of the time, they don't engage or avoid talking religion altogether. This is challenging for 2 reasons. First, people don't have spaces to talk about religion. The interview was one of those spaces, like our interviewees were shocked that the people wanted to talk about religion. Each interview took at least 1 hour, so there were 2 hours, and people will commit to a 3rd hour. When we were doing this research, a team of colleagues from the University of Deusto in Bilbao, in the Basque Country, northern Spain, they couldn't get interviewers. They couldn't get interviewees. People didn't want to talk about religion. In Latin America, people just were flourishing when talking about religion. But it means that there is no space for them to talk about religion in that sense. And the second point is that they don't know how to handle the difference. So if they don't talk about religion, one problem is that people are interested, but they avoid to talk religion. Many respondents experienced the otherness in themselves. Participants were part of a different religious organization or a different tradition within the same affiliation, and changed their identification. Religion is a work in progress, an existential journey more than a dogmatic or intellectual destination. People are on religious paths and occupy certain spiritual locations, but they don't have necessarily reached a destination, nor they have achieved a dogmatic clarity. To be a believer means to have doubts. People were comfortable talking about their doubts. The fact that believers are also work in progress challenged social approaches to religion that heavily focus on the intellectual aspects of religiosity. What do you believe in? When you ask a person, or we use as a synonymous a faithful or a believer, like someone who believes in some kind of dogmatic set. Another trend among the respondents is that the practice of religion they practice their religion on their own terms. Individuals are their own religious authorities. Mandatory religious rituals seem to be hostile, are opposed to the discovery of the self, at odds with the ethics of authenticity. What is really important for most of our interviewees is the personalization of the religious experience. Religions provide symbols and narratives, but people use them to tell their own story. Respondents engage religion in ways that optimize their lives. Communities are relevant, and people join them voluntarily. Most first-personal religious experiences usually happen in the context of a community and leave a lasting impact for good or for bad. In the case of lower class people, Latin Americans are very pragmatic and attend the community that is most available to them. Whether a Catholic or a Pentecostal temple, a non-confessional association attending a Jehovah's Witness celebration, or volunteering at a secular NGO. If they are in the vicinity of it, they will participate in that institution. What is at hand becomes a very important category. There are an interview I was working on from a person, evangelical guy from Montevideo in Uruguay. And he was insisting that his kids goes to the church every Sunday. He didn't go, but he sent the kids to church. And the kid is called Santa Rita. And Santa Rita is a Catholic name. I mean, it's the name of Catholic saint. So I talked to the researcher, my colleague in Uruguay. I said, okay, look, it's possible that this temple, this evangelical Pentecostal temple is called Santa Rita. Maybe it's a neighborhood. And he said, no, it's not an evangelical thing. It's a Catholic church. But this guy has no problem to sending his kid to the Catholic church because he's an evangelical guy, and the thing that is at hand is a Catholic church. It doesn't matter. So this idea that what is at hand is what you practice challenge a lot of the categories that we use as sociologists when we want to address religious differences. What does lived religiosity, or the Latin Americans' lived religiosity, tell us about religion in general? Latin America is a context that has been either ignored or misunderstood by current debates about the transformation of the religious landscape. Scholars tend to think that individuals practice a religion clearly distinguishable from any other, and that practice means attending church once a week, usually on Sundays. Both of these features come from North Atlantic societies, and they have been normalized as a standard of universal religious practices. There has been a lack of understanding of religion other than membership, church attendance, and intellectual agreement with a set of dogmatic principles. All conceptual tools that have been built to make sense of the North American situation, and therefore are not necessarily useful to understand other cultural contexts. The relationship between the religion and the society is culturally shaped, thus cannot be described solely in North Atlantic parameters. Mainstream secularization theories do not satisfactorily account for the religious phenomena experienced in Latin America today, in part because those stories are told from the center by the religious and secular elites. if we listen to different voices, we may very well discover a very different story. Cross-cultural analysis opened the door to making significant contribution to the larger enterprise of colonizing the idea of the common good. What does it mean, like this person here, don't want even the poor sitting at the table of the researchers. Poor people cannot even have a voice at the table. So what are the categories, the tools, the intellectual tools with which we are going to address our reality if we cannot even listen to other voices that are there? I think that for me, working for the common good is being able to bring those voices to the discussion, to say, okay, there is some right here. Why the poor? Because they are 70% of the world's population. I mean, because we are just a minority. We're just an elite of 5% of the world. I mean, the poor have to talk because they are the people. They are the people. We can raise questions as, good for whom? Whose voices are listened to? Which ones are silenced? What are we missing when we think about religion with our own biased categories? The ultimate goal of my research is to contribute to a critical theory of religion, one that is not centered in the North Atlantic world and takes seriously the voices of and the lived experience of other peoples in the world. Thank you very much.